So what does loving yourself actually look like? Welcome to chapter 6 of Mike Wood's podcast two book series. If you've been following along, you've noticed how each chapter builds on the last, from awareness and energy to courage and transformation. But this one of Learn to Love Being You is where it all comes home. In this conversation, Mike is going to take us into the deepest practice of all, unconditional love, not just for others, but for ourselves. He shares how learning to love everyone, even those who cause him pain, become the doorway to self-love, and how forgiveness, compassion, and healthy boundaries can transform our lives from the inside out. So, this episode is about learning and remembering that love isn't something that we have to earn. It's who we already are. It's a daily practice of choosing love over guilt, grace over judgment, and truth over self abandonment. So, stay tuned and please do not forget to like and subscribe before you leave today. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Bradley Nelson and iHeartRadio for your sponsorship, and a big shout out to our fans and listeners. Again, please hit that subscribe button so we can continue bringing you amazing content like we're about to bring you now. Mike, it's great to have you back.
Thank you for having me again. This is fun.
So much fun. Um, oh man, you say that you didn't realize how much you struggled with self-love until you started practicing unconditional love for everyone. What was that experience like at the beginning? Because I mean, I have a hard time with compassion all the time. Like sometimes I just can't stand any to be around humans in general.
Well, it obviously it's not easy, but when we're having those type of emotions, we're in a pretty rough place. Like that's not a joyful place to be when we're irritated with everybody else. And what I've found is that means we're irritable with ourselves. We're not happy with something that we got going on, and obviously, people can irritate us, and it has nothing to do with them. We're looking for quiet, and we can't get it or whatever. But for the most part, for me, I didn't really understand how to love myself. I didn't understand what that meant. Um, and I honestly, I don't know if I truly know how to articulate that, because I think loving yourself is it's kind of an oxymoron. It, it to me, it comes from when you actually love everyone, because we're all connected. You can't pick or choose loving somebody else or just loving yourself. It's one to me. So you have to love everyone to be able to love yourself, and you have to love yourself to be able to love others. They all go hand in hand.
Hmm. So how did like you say loving others, even those who hurt you, eventually circle back and teach you how to love yourself? Can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. Like going through my normal days, if somebody hurt me, somebody's done something to me, and if my daily practice is to immediately just forgive them, right? That's what Jesus did, right on the cross. He said, "I forgive you, for you know not what you've done." And whether you believe in the Bible or not, that could be a lesson for all of us, because I believe that in that moment, giving somebody forgiveness when they're causing you pain frees you from the pain that they're causing. Obviously, if somebody's killing you, that's going to be a tough one. But if it's superficial, freeing yourself from it is the ultimate goal, and forgiving them does that. So it's a difficult practice, but when you do it over and over and over, it doesn't feel right at first. So if somebody does something to me, I started in practicing in the car. People cut you off. That was a great place for me to practice. Um, and I got good at it after a while. Somebody could cut me off in traffic and it didn't bother me anymore. I just immediately forgave them. The instant forgiveness for anything. And then it made it easier to forgive for the next hardest thing or the next hardest thing. And and eventually I'm able to forgive for anything, literally anything, because I know that it allows me when I make a mistake to now I'm 9 months in, 10 months in to just doing a daily practice of forgiving myself for everything. But it took 10 months of doing that to everyone else around me before I was able to actually forgive myself for my own mistakes. But it helped me by forgiving everyone. And then I don't come across the mistake that I've made. Well, heck, I've been forgiving everyone else. I'm worthy of forgiveness too. And then it came full circle. And that's when I realized, you know, this is a symbiotic thing where if you're forgiving others, you're eventually going to be forced to forgive yourself as well.
Right. So that connection between you, the trees, and the air is such a powerful metaphor. I love that. So when did you start to see that deep sense of interconnectedness in your life?
Um, you know, I want to say about 2 years. About 2 years ago, I kind of went through just an experience where it stopped being a belief that we were all connected and started becoming a knowing. Like to give that analogy that we're talking about is, the trees outside. If you've ever seen a picture of your lungs side by side with a tree, the roots and the trees, even the leaves look like your lungs. Structurally, they look the exact same thing. And so, with that being said, when I exhale, the trees are inhaling when I'm exhaling, and when I inhale, I'm inhaling what the trees are exhaling.
Yeah.
So, if that's true, then we share the same lungs. You and I share the same lungs. It means we're all connected. We're all sharing the same lungs. And there's so many other things that you could look at that science will prove that we're all connected. Our energy, air, oxygen, carbon dioxide, like all of these things, they're all linked. They're all linking us together scientifically. Our consciousness, science is catching up with all of these things that's basically proving that we're all connected. And as I that became more of a knowing for me instead of a belief. It was a perspective change that changed everything for me.
Yeah.
I started, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I like how you said that if I'm irritated, that means that if someone irritates me, that means that I'm irritated with myself. And because now that I'm thinking about in hindsight, like every time I'm frustrated or angry or short-tempered, it's because there's something going on within myself that I'm not, I don't feel settled. I don't feel grounded. It's never really that person's fault. Even though sometimes I'd beg to argue it was, it's really something that's going on inside of me, right? And so I've really been trying to analyze that lately. Like, why am I so mad at the person who just put their yoga mat down a little bit louder than everybody else? Like, why is that making me so frustrated right now? Or like, so yeah, it's interesting perspective when you shift it back to yourself that everyone is a mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. If we're all connected and we're all one, that perspective change just changes everything. If we can't accept the flaws in others, we're not able to accept the flaws in ourselves. So to start granting them, forgiveness and leeway and I think in some of the Asian cultures, they make these beautiful vases and they break them and they put them back together with this gold glue
Mm,
and they meditate on the imperfection of that vase after they put it all back together. And it's just kind of a reflection of how we are as humans. We are flawed. We're all flawed. We were made that way, So why are we pointing that out all day long instead of celebrating our differences and celebrating our flaws? Because if we don't learn how to do that, we're never going to be truly peaceful people and be able to relax. If we're constantly pointing out flaws in others, well, we're constantly looking in the mirror trying to figure out where ours are. But if we're constantly forgiving everybody and accepting everybody else's flaws, now all of a sudden when we look in the mirror, we can see beauty, and we could see, you know, see the loveliness of our imperfections.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that so many of us were taught that loving ourselves is selfish. In fact, in past relationships where I've really been focusing on like my mental health and prioritizing myself so I could show up better for, my partner, I was called selfish. Why do you think that belief is so ingrained in society?
Because I think it's so far out of balance. Most of us don't truly understand what unconditional love means until they have a kid. Um,
Mm,
because, or even an animal, like if you have a pet or something, because, we give unconditional love to our kids, and it's very easy for us to do that. Like all of a sudden you have this little baby there and nobody else to take care of it. And you just want to do everything you can to take care of that baby, but it becomes a one-sided thing in most relationships. Most relationships have a give and a take. I'm going to give you this love, but I need something back in return. It's
mm.
not unconditional. If I'm giving you love and you're not giving me back what I want, all of a sudden we're putting up dukes, and we're
Right.
not in a good place. So to truly give unconditional love, um, you have to do it with nothing, no expectation of anything in return. And most people are very, very good at doing things for other people, but they don't want to do them for themselves. So one of the things that one of the little exercises that I do in my program is for everybody to identify their closest person. All right. So who is your closest person? And then you act as if that person is going to leave their body for 6 months. All right, you're going to live their life for the next 6 months, and how are you going to
Oh
treat them?
shit. I like that. I think I know where this is going.
Yeah. So, do they want to work out? How are they going to eat? When they look in the mirror, how are you going to talk about them when you see them in the mirror? Do they have goals that they want to try to achieve? Are they too scared to change their jobs and go get another one? Or I don't know what it is, but you as their closest person will know what it is that they truly want in their life. And are you going to try to go get it for them? So when they come back to their body in 6 months, they're fit. They can go run that marathon, or, they've done whatever it is that they wanted to do in their life. And, most people are going to say, hell yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do A, B, C, D. When they get back, it's going to be game on. They're going to be so happy. Then I say, okay, if you're going to do all that for them, what about you? All right.
Mm.
If you're willing to do all of those things for them, are you willing to do any of that for yourself? And most people don't really have that type of perspective. They're willing to do everything for their friends and everybody else, but not willing to go that extra mile for themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting, hey, because I know for me, like in the evening time before bed, I'm like, tomorrow I'm gonna get up at this time and I'm gonna do this, and this. And then sometimes morning comes and just that drive is completely gone. Like I feel like it almost comes in phases. But I can tell you this, if one of my best friends called me and said, I need you to meet me in the forest to go for a walk right now because I need your help, I'd be there in a heartbeat. Like
Yep,
that motivation, we really need to be able to motivate ourselves to make ourselves feel better. But it can be so hard.
it is. Yeah, it really is. It's hard to get that motivation. And I want to make it very clear. It is not about putting ourselves above others. It's about putting ourselves on an equal playing field. If you're
Mhm.
willing to go do that for your friend, we'll be willing to do it for you. But at the same time, a lot of times, we talked about this in the earlier chapters, but when we get through weeks 1 through 3, right? And now all of a sudden we got negativity basically switching in our brain. We're living off oxytocin in our brain. We're understanding it. So now all of a sudden we see negativity everywhere. And we have to set boundaries. And a lot of times, just like your question when we started talking about this, was sometimes it pisses people off. Well, it's okay if people are being negative and they're bringing this negative environment into your world. You're supposed to protect yourself. That's the advice you would give to your friend. You just have to do it in a kind way so you don't have any regrets. Like, be honest with them if they're close to you, and if they can't handle it and they're saying, oh, you judgmental whatever, I can't believe you're judging me right now, who do you think you are, you think you're high and mighty, blah 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 blah. Well, okay, we're not on the same page right now, and I need space. I love you, and I'm sorry that this isn't working out right now, but I'm working on myself right now, and I just need positivity in my life. And right now, this conversation is not helping me, so I need space. Just because it pisses somebody off doesn't mean that it's wrong, you
Right.
know. So I highly recommend, being kind in the situation, but you still are entitled to hold space and hold boundaries that show yourself love and support by putting yourself in an environment that's healthy for you.
So what's the difference between ego-driven self-love and genuine self-love?
So I'm working on a manifesting program, and very first week, here's the thing. You give $5, $20, doesn't matter, whatever you can afford, and I want you to go give $20 to a homeless person today, and then I want you to tell everybody that you did it, and feel how it feels inside when you give $20 and you tell everybody that, hey, I just gave $20, versus the next day, I want you to give another $20 and don't tell anyone.
Mm,
It's going to feel way different. As soon as you tell somebody that you gave that homeless person $20, you just received the gift from the universe for doing something good from somebody else. But when you tell people about it, the ego gets its reward right then. The
right.
Christianity and Buddhism and the Quran, they all talk about, if you give, you get tenfold in return. Every religion says the same thing. So does Buddhism. But if your ego, if you're telling everybody what you did, that's your reward. It's
Right.
a reward to the ego. You're feeding the ego. You can do all the charitable work in the world, but if you're just doing it so you could post it on Instagram about what you did, the universe isn't going to reward you for that. It's still a good thing and whatever, but you're getting your reward the moment you're telling everybody, hey, look what I did. So there's a big difference between doing something out of the kindness of your heart and true unconditional love, and then doing it and then telling people what you did and getting a reward for it.
Mm. Yeah, I used to run a program not for profit, and some of the volunteers literally wanted they wanted news stories made about them. And I always thought it was ridiculous because I'm like, why are you volunteering? Like, why are you doing this? Is it because you want fame and fortune from it, or you want to be recognized? Or are you doing it because you genuinely want to help people? Like, it always
Yeah.
turned me off so much that they were wanting these things. They were wanting recognition. It just felt so bizarre to me.
Yeah. And the universe has its way of sorting it out. Like, for me, when I first kind of found peace, I wanted to tell everyone.
Yeah.
I could see pain everywhere where I looked. My only goal in life was to just shout at the rooftops to everyone. But I learned really quick, most people don't want help. And there is nobody that I can help unless they want to be helped. They have to say, hey, I'm over here. I like what you're saying. Yeah, please give me some of that. Okay, that person, I could sit down and have a conversation, and I'm pretty positive that I could help them if they're open to
Yeah.
what I'm teaching. But if they're not open to it, all you're doing is pushing your ego on them. And that is a very, very common trait in people who go through a spiritual awakening is they get they have a uh, mistaken goal of trying to help everyone, and they end up having to learn the lesson that hey, you can't help everyone. You just keep helping yourself. Put your oxygen mask on first. Don't try to help the kid next to you until your oxygen mask is on. The best way for all of us to help everyone around us is to truly just keep working on ourselves, and we can get ourselves out there into the world and start to volunteer, and we could do things to help other people, but um, make sure we're healthy first, and then two, we're doing it for the right reasons. I think that second part of that is just going to be a constant awareness, because we all have that that egoic drive that says, hey, I can help you, let me help you. It's just human nature, and I think everybody that goes through a certain amount of healing is going to try to give whatever they just found that helped them to somebody else.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And I very quickly learned the same thing. And it was almost like super defeating. It was like, how could you not want what I have if I'm feeling so good? And then people are just like, no, like, not a lot of people want to change their lives. And that was a really hard realization for me to stomach because I was like, oh my God. And then it just made the world look so different to me,
Yeah.
so different. And I felt like such an anomaly in the world because changing and healing and doing the work, it's not easy.
Mm-mm. No, it's not. And once you start to heal yourself, everybody's pain just starts to show up. You just see it everywhere, and it makes it that much harder to, if you have something that could help somebody, we just want to give it to them. But the universe has different plans. It just doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. Yeah, they won't appreciate it. So you describe unconditional love as love without conditions. How does someone begin to practice when they don't feel lovable?
That's what, and that's where I was for a very long time. Even though I was practicing unconditional love, and I'd gone back and I'd rewritten a boatload of core beliefs, and I got myself to where I was in a good place. I still didn't feel lovable. I got all these core beliefs, and most of mine were about my dyslexia, and just my learning disability. It made me feel dumb, and I reframed all of those. Most of what I rewrote was about being dumb. I fixed most of that, and then all of a sudden the unworthiness, the unlovable started popping up. And so that's when I started shifting my daily practices towards focusing on that. And that's where, if you're having a hard time looking at yourself in the mirror and being happy with who you are, I would just start to listen, right? Listen to what the thoughts are in your head. And if your thoughts are judgmental towards others, well, your thoughts are also going to be judgmental towards yourself. And it's going to be very hard for you to find peace with yourself if you're judging everybody else. Because if you're judging everybody else and we're all connected, those judgments are going to you. It feels like, okay, I'm knocking them down and I'm lifting me up in that moment. But in reality, you're doing the opposite. You're knocking yourself down both times. And we have to learn how to change the way that our brain is thinking. If we want to truly be compassionate and loving towards ourselves, we have to reframe the way that we're thinking and addressing other people. Because if we're knocking everybody down and we're judging everyone else, there's no way we're going to find any kind of self-love.
I kind of feel like you're building like a brick wall every time you judge someone and knock someone else down. It's like you're building a wall that's getting taller and taller and taller, and then you're hiding behind it. Like that's
Yeah.
what I picture when you say that. Um, so I know for me, like in my last relationship, when I started prioritizing myself and really like radical self-love became part of my life, was really hard for me to start saying no and to start like putting myself first. Do you have any advice to people when it comes to that?
Um, you know, I don't know if I have advice for that, but just know that it's normal. It's not going to be easy. This is going to be hard. But just be kind when you're doing it, because it's going to make it worse if you're in a relationship, or you're in a family dynamic with a sister or a brother or your parents, um, and you're having to get space, and you're having to basically reclaim your own life. Um, you don't have to ask for permission. This is
Hmm.
your life. Um, you know, take control of it. Now, it's gonna feel like, to somebody else who's very close to you, it's gonna feel like you're taking something from them, like you're
Right.
doing something, because that's how most relationships are. They're give and take. Like, I give this to you, you give me something, and then when you take some of that back, they're like, wait a minute, you don't get to just take that back. I expect you to be doing this for me right now, and you're not now. You want to go over here and meditate or do something, and I'm not even involved. I can't believe you're doing that. Well, don't feel bad. Just keep moving forward. If you feel pulled to give yourself reset new boundaries, that means you're healing and you're growing, and it's going to be tough, but just stay the course, and within a month or two, life will just rearrange itself, and you're going to feel great. These resetting of boundaries and these challenging moments, they only last for a couple months, and then everything sets, and you when one door closes, another one opens, but you have to get that one closed first before the other one's going to open.
Yeah. When I started practicing radical self-love and started saying no and setting boundaries and giving myself that space, my whole entire world rearranged itself where I healed my anxious attachment style in my relationship. And I remember one night I was laying in bed and we had a vast social life, but I honestly did not like staying out late. So I started staying home and I was laying there and I was like, oh my God, I feel so comfortable right now. And so, whereas before, when I had an anxious attachment style and I chose to stay home, I wouldn't be able to sleep or I'd be anxious about what was going on and like fear missing out. And then when I finally put myself first and I said, no, I'm doing this for myself, then like that attachment style was healed. And eventually I ended up leaving the whole entire relationship because it just wasn't working out. So it felt really awful at first. Then it started getting easier and easier and easier. And then my whole life changed.
Yeah. And I did something very similar in my marriage. Me and my wife, we went through a brief period of time where I was battling negativity in my own mind, and I had a nice, calm conversation. And, she thought I was attacking her, but in a very short period of time, we both got back into a much more comfortable place. Not every time this happens, people are going to separate. Sometimes it will, and with the people that I've coached through my program, especially the young folks, because when we're older, we got 3 friends, 5 friends. That's how many
One
people that
friend.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah, one friend if you're lucky, right? But when we're young, these 18 to 25-year-old kids, they have 30 people that they're
Yeah.
close to. And it's whittling down to in the teens. And so they have so many people, and they're getting a wide array of, these people are gone now. And this one, we went through a rough patch, but now she came back even stronger than ever, because we were addressing negativity with her. She pushed away, and when she came back a month later, she had been dealing with her own negativity the whole time. Now she came back. They're on the same page now. So not every time that you set a boundary, it's going to be a bad thing. But regardless of whatever's happening in the world, hold your own space. You do what's right for you. Do what you would do for your best friend if your best friend was leaving their body. Just put yourself on a level playing field with everyone else. You don't have to put yourself higher than everyone, but don't put yourself below everyone either.
Yeah. And I like that. I like how you said that, maybe you split up for a while, but maybe you find yourself back to each other with these people that you have to separate yourself with for a little while. But you're not going to grow if you keep putting yourself in the same environment. And
Yeah.
so I know in the moment it feels like your life is over. If you're going through like a very big change and you're in a relationship or married, it feels like, oh my God, this is over. And then what? But you take it moment to moment. It's just yeah, you never know when you're going to be reunited with them. And maybe like everything will work out in the end.
Yeah. It could be the relationship that you had before can be even stronger and
Yeah.
healthier, and it's filled with positivity because you, all of us, we get to set the boundaries of positivity. Everything that we're throwing out here in this program is all about reframing your mind with positivity. It doesn't mean negative things don't happen. We're just accepting them and not, you know, ruminating on them. We're giving instant forgiveness, but it doesn't mean somebody gets to come up and punch me in the face. I'm going to defend myself, like you don't get to just punch me in the face. I'm going to protect myself. And so it's not about just letting whatever happen. It's just about setting a safe environment to where you can be healthy and happy and you can work on you because let's face it, most all of us are suffering. And so how are we going to get from suffering to peace? We're going to have to go inward and work on ourselves, and that requires some space, some boundaries, some blocking out some negativity, some stuff that's coming into our world, making it very difficult for us to find peace.
Yeah, for sure. So how does loving yourself change the way you give love to others?
Um, it it just makes it easy. Just kind of hold space and just uh, you know you start for me, and this isn't, I'm not perfect at this, but I try to practice and love everybody the same way I would love my kids. Like that unconditional love that I give to my kid, why can't I give that to everyone that I meet always? Right? I have a lot of kids. I can't spend all day long with all of my kids. I got 7 kids. I'd never be able to do anything. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily about time or whatever, but I could still show everyone that I come in contact with that same compassion and love. And if it becomes very apparent, where my boundaries need to be with most everyone, set those healthy boundaries and then just keep moving. But it doesn't mean I can't love everyone the same.
Mhm.
So for me, that's the practice that is that I think is going to bear a lot of fruit for a lot of people if we can learn to just love without conditions. And it's hard. It's hard. When we grew up watching our parents or caregivers watch their relationships. That's how we formed our core beliefs on what love is supposed to look like. Well, we watched two people and that's the way it's supposed to be. And I think it's wrong. I think most of it is wrong. And I know we probably have some beautiful parents out there who did a fabulous job. But when it's a give and take relationship, when it's you do this for me and then I'll do this for you and vice versa, those are conditions. And is it true love if there's conditions on everything? We shouldn't
No, I
have to.
don't think so.
Yeah, when we start to love that way on the outside, then I think eventually the subconscious mind and our inside will just start doing that because we're doing it to everyone else. I don't think we have to figure out how to love ourselves. I think if you practice loving everybody else unconditionally with no conditions, I think you automatically will start loving yourself with no conditions and being kind to yourself.
Yes, and I think the one thing to note is that not everybody maybe is ready to receive that type of treatment. Because I know for me, I'm a very loving person, a lot of empathy and a lot of compassion for people. And I express my emotions very easily, and not everybody can handle that. So even though I was like giving a lot of myself, I was giving a lot of myself like just in a natural way, the way that I love everybody to someone, and they found it like overwhelming and they were uncomfortable with the way that I was showing um my emotions and like saying that I cared about them, that was too much for them to handle. So I think we should just let people know that some people just might not be ready to, I don't know, it might overwhelm them. But I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure why. Like people seem to be a little bit uncomfortable when, you say, "Oh, I love you," or like, "I really care about you." It
Hmm.
scares people away.
Yeah, it does. And I think early on when I was practicing, unconditional love, I did the same thing. Um, but then I started to learn their boundaries, because so like
Mm,
I'm setting boundaries, well, everybody else are setting boundaries. And when the more you set a boundary for yourself, the more you start to see everybody else's boundaries. And if you're showing true unconditional love for them, you see their boundaries. And
right.
so try to identify their boundaries and safely go across them in whatever
Mm,
way is compassionate for them. Because everybody is different. I heard a yogi say one time that the most valuable thing that anybody could give anyone is their attention. And, for us to say we're going to love unconditionally and just love bomb everyone. Well, if that's how somebody chooses to do it, right? Well, that could be dangerous to a lot of other people, and we could cause uncomfortable feelings and pain in other people by
sure.
doing that. So, what I would suggest is go slow with this process, and before the practice of giving somebody unconditional love will require a lot of attention. Giving somebody their time to truly sit with them and understand what their boundary is, and then give love at that boundary, whatever they're comfortable with. And if they let you in a little bit more, okay. And then if love is okay, okay, give them love. Say those words. But if it's not, then stay out of it. But if we pay attention and we truly are identifying those boundaries with giving them attention and paying attention to them, I think we'll find their boundaries before we push over the top of them. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to do that.
For me, it was, I think you hit the nail on the head because I saw so much potential in this person that told me that it was making them uncomfortable. And I just wanted them to know how amazing they were. And so it was coming
Mhm.
from that place, but they weren't ready for that kind of emotion, like to be
Yeah.
front and center, and they weren't used to that kind of language. So it made them very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So for people listening who feel unworthy or struggle with self-acceptance, what is the first step to begin loving yourself? Like, what can they do?
Um, to take stock in where they are today versus where they were. We've all gone through stuff. We've all been through pain, but we suck at keeping score. We take stock in all the mistakes that we make, but we don't ever stop and go, wait a minute, I did a lot of good things here. I did A, B, C, and D. I did good over here. Yes, you need to pay attention to any mistakes so we don't continue to make the same mistakes and head down a wrong path. But um, I would say just being kind to yourself, and when you're assessing where you're at, we all do that. We all stop and go, all right, where am I at today? What's going on here? But when you're doing that, balance it out with your achievements. Don't just focus on anything negative that's going on.
Yeah, it's going to be a lifelong journey. Like I was talking to someone in his 60s this morning, and we were talking about how, society makes you believe that when you reach a certain level of healing, that all of the stress melts away. But we're always going to be bombarded with stress. So we're always going to be bombarded with these things. We're going to be dealing with stuff that's going to challenge our mindset for the rest of our lives. And everybody is struggling. I think that's important to remember is like everybody is struggling.
Yeah. Yeah. And whenever we go through something, the second part of my answer would definitely be everything is a lesson. There is a lesson to learn in every experience. And if you're going through the same shit over and over and over again, it's probably because you're not paying attention. And you're not there's the universe is trying to teach you something and you're not listening.
Yep. That would have been my problem years ago.
I say that's everybody's. We as I've gotten quieter and calmer, the lessons are coming faster, and I'm able to learn from mistakes and things that are happening around me without them being big mistakes. The universe is trying to speak to you, it's trying to speak to all of us, and we have to get quiet to listen. And the more noisy we get, the universe is going to get louder to meet us. So if our brain is going crazy and we're just living on autopilot, we're just doing whatever all day long, well, the universe is going to throw some pretty major pitfalls right in front of you to slow you down and make you run into that wall. So maybe you'll wake up and see that, hey, you got to deal with some shit here. You got to change what's happening here. You got to learn from this lesson. But the opposite happens as well. The quieter we get, the quieter our minds get, and we start paying attention instead of living on autopilot. And we're actually awake when we're driving, and we're actually awake when we're eating, and we're actually conscious in most of our days. The universe will just sing to you all day long, and you can learn lessons without having to go through the challenging moments to grow, which is
Yeah,
which is also a
most
beautiful thing.
most of us need that wall, unfortunately, in order to change. What was that
Yeah.
wall for you?
Um, just the voices in my head just got louder. The misery got louder in my head. As the more success I got, the louder it was that I was stupid, unlovable, ugly, unworthy. The it kept getting louder and louder and louder. My wife, my poor wife, I've been with her for 22 years, we're married for 22 years, and she hears these podcasts, and I always tell the same story, about how I achieved everything. I found the perfect woman, I found, the perfect job, and then I found the job that keep her staying home, and then I made more money than I need, but the whole time I was miserable, and for her, she's like, well, wait a minute, you're miserable, but you're with me. It had nothing to do with anybody. It
Right.
was just the noise in my head that was all about me. She was perfect in her way. Like, our relationship was great, but the noise in my head made me miserable. And the more I achieved, the louder those voices got, the more clear that I was an idiot, the more clear that I wasn't lovable, I wasn't worthy of anything. And those voices just got louder and louder and louder. Because I thought I was when I got the new job, I thought that was going to make all this noise stop, and it
Yeah.
didn't. We got the house. I thought that was going to do it. When my wife stayed home with the kids, I thought that would do it. Every time when I thought it was going to do it, I was happy for about a month. And then the noises came back, and they came back louder and louder. I remember telling Jason Jarrett, the owner of the company that I work for, that I was going to quiet my mind by any means necessary. And I don't think he understood what I meant when I said it, but I meant it. Like, if I couldn't have quieted my voice, the voices in my head by any other means, I was going to do it one way or the other. And that's how loud and miserable it was in my head. And so that was my wall. You, most people identify with the thoughts that are going on in their head. They try to hide from them. And when you are identifying with those thoughts, oh my gosh, they could be deafening. It's miserable.
I think it's important to note that there's a lot of people like that right now. This November is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and a lot of men commit suicide after age 40, and they appear seemingly like they have everything you just described, the job, the wife, the kids, the house, the car, but inside they're just not doing well. And so I think it's really important to note that appearances are very deceiving, and we need to really start showing each other that unconditional love that you're talking about today, and asking people how they're doing and how they're actually doing, not based on judgment of what their life looks like, whether it's on social media or whatever your view of their life looks like. It is always 100% different from what they're actually experiencing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's some stats that I think it's 28% of women identify with some level of depression, and men are like 12% behind that. But men kill themselves at a rate 4 to 1 higher. So men are killing themselves 4 times more rate, but they're going to get help 12% less often. So men are suffering in silence because of the stigma that we all have, that we got to have be this big tough guy to put all of it on our backs and rub some dirt on it, get back in the game. There's no crying in baseball. It's just we've never been taught how to deal with our emotions, and I'd like to think that those times are changing.
I really hope so. I really hope so. Yeah, men were never taught to talk about their depression. So I think a lot of the stats are skewed because men don't admit it.
Yeah, yeah, men are suffering. I know I got a daughter and a wife. And, they struggle with the self-image. They're both completely just beautiful people, and they look in the mirror and they don't see it. But you look at them and go, I can't imagine they would not see beauty every day. But when you shift it over to men, it's men aren't deemed valuable unless they have a job. You know what I mean? If you're not making enough money, you're not worthy. And even if you're making money, are you making enough? Every man is judging themselves against another man, and then you got the whole macho dynamic of fighting. The macho guy, the alpha male is going to kick everybody's ass, and then the guy that never would want to fight in a million years has to deal with that, the alpha male guy, and everybody gets put in categories in their own minds, at least men in the men's world. And most women probably don't realize that most of this crap is going on, but uh, there's a lot of misery going on, and none of it's necessary. To me, when I grew up, when my dad was gone, he moved out when I was 1.5 years old, moved to Tennessee, which is where I'm living now. And my mom raised 3 boys, and I didn't know what it meant to be a man. I had no idea. I had to try to figure it out on the streets by myself. And now, if I had to give a definition of what it takes to be a man, it'd be to be honest about everything. That is the definition of being a man: being compassionate, loving, sad, depressed, full of anxiety, anger, whatever it is, just to be honest with it. Because when we're honest, we can let it out a little bit, and it kind of liberates us and frees, and it sets an example for everybody else around you that they get to be honest as well. Oh yeah, I am suffering. Yeah, this sucks. I don't like living the way that I'm living. I don't like the noise in my head. To be able to be honest is is it's actually week nine in my program. Authenticity. It's the most powerful emotion on the planet. Most people think love or hate is the most powerful, but authenticity is 4 times or 400 times more powerful when tested by scientists as an emotion, because when you're being honest, it it just liberates something inside of us. And I don't think most men understand how to do that.
I also think it liberates, or I know it liberates something in other people. When somebody stands up and is authentically themselves and they say a truth that they're struggling with, then other people who are around that feel like they can do it too. And so it's
Yeah.
liberating for everybody when somebody speaks up and speaks their truth and asks for help or admits that they're not doing well. It takes a lot, but it's like the ripple effect.
Yeah. Yeah. If you set that example of saying, hey, I'm miserable, I'm struggling, I'm dealing with depression in silence here, you know, I love you guys and hope you're doing okay. Hope you're not struggling like I am. Something like that. When you say it out into the world, somebody is going to feel that, and it's gonna be received extremely well. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of men out here doing that. They just don't know how. It's not anything they've been practicing. It's not anything they've seen from leaders.
Yeah, 100%. So tell us more about where your program is. Tell us more about your program and where people can find out more information.
Um, you can find it at learntoloveBeingYou.com, and it's basically a 10-week program that requires about an hour a day of work, hard work, going inward. Um, but we'll touch on virtually every topic out there that in a 10-week period that's going to give you all the tools you need to understand how you operate, how the mind and body work together, so you can understand how all of it works, so you can start taking control of your life.
Amazing. So if you could leave the listeners with one truth about what it means to learn to love being you, what would it be?
That we're all connected. Be kind to everybody else, and it'll teach you to be kind to yourself. Being kind to ourselves is extremely hard. We're not going to be able to just go out there today and start being nice to ourselves. You've been training for years on how to beat yourself up, and the world's been doing it. But if you practice being kind to others, showing unconditional love, it won't take very long, and you'll just start doing it to yourself. You'll start showing yourself unconditional love in no time.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here today. Chapter 6, we're on to chapter 7 next time. But it's been amazing talking to you about essentially radical self-love.
Yeah, this is what the world needs to hear.
It is what the world needs to hear. Yes. And speaking of that, if you guys are struggling, please do not struggle alone. Reach out to somebody, speak your truth. It'll empower somebody else to do the same thing. And we need you guys to stay on this earth with us. So don't struggle alone. Until next time, take care, everybody.